Smart partnership to improve livelihoods of Felda settlers. Reduce overseas investments and focus more on domestic market. Good evening and salam Malaysia Madani. You're watching Malaysia Tonight. I'm Daryl Baptist. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim has instructed the relevant party to submit a report regarding the ongoing water supply problem at University Malaysia Sabah, or also known as UMS, despite the government having approved 3 million ringgit last year to overcome the problem. At an assembly with staff of the Finance Ministry today, Datuk Seri Anwar, who is also Finance Minister, said he found out from social media about UMS students still facing water problems and raised the matter to Higher Education Minister Datuk Seri Zamri Abdul Kadir.
Jadi saya tidak mengerti sama ada mungkin projek itu mengambil masa. Saya tidak mahu buat keputusan menghukum seperti mana setengah ustaz dia cepat hukum orang. Jadi saya tak mahu hukum. Cuma saya nak minta laporan teliti. Apa jadi sejak Menteri Kewangan luluskan peruntukan segera menyelesaikan masalah air di universiti tersebut.
On 31st May last year, the federal government approved an allocation of 3 million ringgit to UMS to resolve its water supply problem. And yesterday, Datuk Seri Zamri announced an additional allocation of 2 million ringgit to UMS for the same purpose.
Tapi ada juga rahmah dan ihsan.
Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Anwar said every government machinery, both at the federal and state levels, need to have uniformity and a better understanding of the government's capabilities and the country's financial strength. Elaborating further on the matter, the Prime Minister said at a meeting with the leaders of the Pahang government and the State Public Works Department yesterday, he took the opportunity to explain the country's financial position to them. During the meeting, he said there were requests for allocations of between 7 billion ringgit and 8 billion ringgit for infrastructure-related projects in the state.
Sebab itu saya memanfaatkan waktu itu menjelaskan tentang hutan negara, defisit, keupayaan kita. Itu harus difahami. Tetapi ada beberapa perkara yang mendesak. Umpamanya kita dah luluskan dalam belanjawan. Soal pengurusan dan maintenance.
A smart partnership between Felda and the government will be formed to help settlers improve their livelihoods, according to Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi. Datuk Seri Ahmad Zahid, who is also the Rural and Regional Development KKDW Minister, said efforts are being made in 6 areas, including education and infrastructure, to solve the issues faced by both existing and future settlers.
Kami bekerja secara smart partnership, satu perkongsian pintar di mana kami telah bersetuju antaranya untuk mengendalikan kursus yang dikendalikan oleh Felda, kursus TVET yang bersesuaian dengan kehendak pasaran yang baru. Begitu juga untuk menaikkan taraf dan pembaikan infrastruktur umpamanya. Ini juga saya akan dapat kelulusan daripada Kabinet supaya peruntukan sedia ada yang berada di bawah KKDW dapat dipergunakan sebahagiannya bagi membantu infrastruktur di Felda.
He said this to reporters after chairing a coordinating meeting at Menara Felda today. Among them is coordinating with Felda to provide scholarships to students from Felda schemes to study abroad. Other initiatives, he said, include boosting infrastructure and repairs at Felda schemes pending a decision by the Cabinet. The Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, KPKM, has allocated 50 million ringgit from the Agricultural Disaster Fund. Its Minister, Datuk Seri Mohamad Sabu, said this amount will be used to compensate up to 50% of the losses incurred by farmers, breeders and fishermen affected by the floods.
Banjir tahun ni yang di Kelantan saja 20 juta. Lain-lain negeri kita belum dapat maklumat sepenuhnya lagi. Pegawai-pegawai akan terus lagi mendapat butiran-butiran yang lain. Kemungkinan akan bertambah tuntutan.
He said this at the Kelantan Sentuhan Agro Madani program in Kota Baru today. Datuk Seri Muhammad also said KPKM's initiatives are crucial in aiding flood-affected target groups to recover, contributing to the growth of the country's agriculture and agri-food sector. He said the scope of food security is not solely under the responsibility of KPKM, but involves the collective effort of all parties in line with the concept food security is shared responsibility. An open payment system for the public transport services network managed by Prasarana Malaysia Berhad will begin next year. Transport Minister Anthony Locke said the facility will be prepared at 140 stations of the light rail transit or LRT, mass rail transit or MRT and monorail services. He added that the implementation must require the re-examination of several factors before it can be fully done. Among others, it must take into account the process of modifying the gantries at every station to accommodate the planned integration of the payment system.
Jadi semua stesen itu perlu diintegrasikan dulu sebelum open payment system ini dapat dilaksanakan. Jadi namun begitu, saya telah dapat kepastian komitmen mereka bahawa tahun ini akan memulakan proses implementation ini dan kita harap servis ini dapat kita lancarkan pada tahun hadapan.
Speaking at an event in the federal capital, he explained that the open payment system would introduce the use of My Debit and credit cards as additional payment methods at gantries, aside from the existing touch and go cards, as well as tokens. Telecommunication companies will not impose additional charges for subscribers to access the 5G network. Communications Minister Fahmi Fadil said the chief executive officers of all telecommunication companies notified him of their decision not to impose charges for 5G access.
Ini telah dipersetujui dan dimaklumkan kepada saya oleh semua CEO syarikat telco. Pengguna mempunyai pelbagai pilihan penawaran pelan dan perkhidmatan tambahan berdasarkan kesesuaian penggunaan individu. Bagaimanapun, pengguna perlu memastikan peranti yang diguna menyokong rangkaian 5G.
He said this in a media conference after conducting the cellular service quality tests for voice calls today. Previously, he was reported to have said that the government would consider taking action against telecommunication companies charging an additional fee to existing customers to access the 5G services. Asked about the current status of the 5G network coverage in Malaysia, Fahmi said he would announce this at a media conference after the cabinet meeting chaired by Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim tomorrow. Home Minister Datuk Seri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail said a bill is being formulated to establish the sole National Border Agency, also known as SBA. He said the Cabinet has agreed to the bill proposal to set up a new SBA entity which will use one name and operates as the new Border Control Agency.
Jemaah Menteri baru saja memberikan persetujuan untuk cadangan diadakan rang undang-undang bagi maksud menubuhkan entiti baru Single Border Agency yang akan memakai satu nama dan seterusnya beroperasi sebagai satu agensi.
Following the Cabinet's decision, Saifuddin Nasution said the Home Ministry and the Attorney General's chambers have started work to craft the bill to be tabled in Parliament in the first quarter of this year. The establishment of SBA, as announced by Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim when tabling Budget 2024 on 13th October, was part of the initiative to strengthen the level of national defence and security preparedness. KDN will be lead in the implementation of SBA to regulate the country's 141 entry points. Coming up, Malaysia's GDP expected to grow more than 4% in 2024. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim has urged government-linked investment companies, or GLICs, and government-linked companies, GLCs, to reduce their overseas investments and increase their domestic investments. Datuk Seri Anwar, who is also the Finance Minister, said the government is, however, prepared to give flexibility to GLCs and GLICs to make investments abroad if there is a need.
Kerana kalau alasannya tidak menarik atau atraktif, maka apa kemunasabahan kita mengadakan kempen menarik pelabur asing ke Malaysia?
Speaking at the Ministry of Finances, or MOF, assembly today, Datuk Seri Anwar had also asked the Finance Ministry and Pantau Madani to coordinate efforts so that GLICs and GLCs implement strategic investments in line with the new Industrial Master Plan and the National Energy Transition Roadmap. He said in their pursuit of profits, GLICs and GLCs should also take on a larger corporate responsibility in national development, including improving the welfare of their employees. More than 1 million individuals have registered under the Central Database Hub, PADU, as of this morning, 8 days after the system was launched and made accessible to the public. Economy Minister Rafizi Ramli, in a post on social media platform X, said that these figures include children under 18 years old. Elaborating further, the minister said the entire government machinery has been deployed to ensure that they minimize the risk of being left out in the implementation of targeted subsidies through PADU registration. He further urged everyone to maintain the momentum to shift towards targeted assistance and reminded those who have not registered to do so. He also appealed for the public's assistance in helping those who are not tech-savvy to register, including parents, family members and neighbours. PADU registration is open to the public from 2nd January to 31st March, and users can update and verify 30 personal details, including ID card number, household number, and residential address. This initiative aims to improve the efficiency of policy planning and resource distribution, especially the distribution of targeted government subsidies and assistance to people who deserve it. In a related development, Rafizi today refuted claims of a technology company, Akio Technologies, of being involved in the development of the Central Database Hub, PADU. On the other hand, he stressed that the system was completely developed by civil servants without the involvement of any third party. Rafizi said the PADU analytics team had invited Dr. Che Han Lau, the CEO of Akio Technologies, only in the capacity of upskilling in data science, based on his ability to develop big data and machine learning. Rafizi further clarified that the PADU development process, the collection or cleaning of PADU data, does not involve Dr. Che or anyone from his company. PADU, launched on 2nd January, is a database that contains profiles of citizens and permanent residents living in Malaysia to help the government in implementing policies in a targeted manner. PADU was jointly developed using the internal expertise of the Ministry of Economy, Department of Statistics Malaysia, or DOSM, and the Malaysian Administrative Modernisation and Management Planning Unit, or MAMPU, in collaboration with various data provider agencies. Datasonic Group Berhad has received letters of extensions, also known as LOEs, from the Home Ministry, KDN, for the supply of the Malaysian passport chips, passport documents and polycarbonate biodata pages. The extension involves a 6-month period from 1st December 2023 to 31st May 2024. The LOEs are for the supply of Malaysian passport chips, documents and polycarbonate biodata pages with cumulative value of 134.95 million ringgit. Datasonic also announced that it has received the letter of award from KDN for the supply of MyCard, MyTentera, MyPOCA raw cards and consumables for the National Registration Department, or NRD, for the same period, for a contract sum of 28.69 million ringgit. On the LOEs, it said the additional contract values are 60.20 million ringgit for the supply of passport chips, 25.33 million ringgit for the supply of passport documents, and 49.43 million ringgit for the supply of polycarbonate biodata pages. In addition, Datasonic also secured a LOE for comprehensive maintenance services of card personalization centers at NRD for the same 6-month period, bringing the total value to 146.31 million ringgit. Its executive chairman, Tengku Datuk Sri Abu Bakar Ahmad Tengku Abdullah, in a statement said the group is proud to continue its role as the sole provider of passport solutions to the Immigration Department, a role it has been successfully fulfilling since 2016. Affin Hwang Investment Bank Berhad expects Malaysia's economy to grow by 4.5% this year, against 4.0% estimated for 2023, on the back of resilient domestic demand and improved economic fundamentals. Chief Executive Officer Nur Jasmi Mohammad Nasir said domestic demand, which cushioned the decline in export growth last year, would continue to be supported by strong household spending and a recovery in tourism-related activities. He said the performance of Malaysia's economy will partially depend on the global economic growth, particularly for external demand. However, with the resilient domestic demand, the research house is forecasting the economy to achieve a stronger expansion with a projected gross domestic growth of 4.5% for 2024. Affin Group Chief Economist Alan Tan Chu Leong said exports in most major economies are likely to recover in 2024, with China, the world's largest exporter, benefiting the most. He said the recovery in global exports would be positive for Malaysia, as it could boost demand for electrical and electronic products, which also aligns with better prospects in global semiconductor sales. On foreign direct investment, Tan said that as the advanced economies are expected to start cutting interest rates in the second half of 2024, investors would look at emerging countries, including Malaysia, for investment diversification. On another note, Tan said the ringgit is expected to be one of the best performing currencies in the region in 2024, with it ending the year at 4 ringgit and 40 cents against the US dollar. He said the ringgit would be lifted by the prospect of easing interest rates globally, as well as the country's strong current account surplus, sound fiscal discipline and lower inflation domestically. He also said the ringgit's appreciation will be market determined as investor sentiment improves amid the country's strengthening economic fundamentals, with possible favourable assessments by sovereign rating agencies. He added that the expectation of interest rate cuts by the US Federal Reserve would further support the ringgit. Most probably, from the second half of 2024, the US Federal Reserve, or Fed, would normalize or cut interest rates while major central banks in the region hold rates. So Malaysia is expected to see more capital inflows back to the region. This will help spur positive sentiment for the ringgit, and a similar trend not only to be seen in the ringgit but also in regional currencies. The Affin Group chief economist also expects Bank Negara Malaysia to keep the overnight policy rate, or OPR, unchanged for the rest of this year, given a higher for longer interest rate environment in the US, with the Fed starting to cut the key rate by 25 basis points in its September meeting, followed by more cuts in November and December by a total of 50 basis points. China's postal industry handled more than 160 billion parcels in 2023, according to data released by the State Post Bureau today. The Bureau said that in 2023, the country's postal industry handled 162 billion pieces of parcels with a revenue of 1.5 trillion yuan, a year-on-year increase of 16.5% and 13.5% respectively. Among them, the express delivery enterprises handled 132 billion pieces and earned 1.2 trillion yuan, expanding 19.5% and 14.5% respectively from the previous year. With the support and guidance of the State Post Bureau, distribution centres, warehousing facilities and transportation networks for postal express delivery enterprises were laid out rationally in 2023. The construction of international postal express delivery hub clusters centering around city clusters of Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei, the Yangtze River, Delta, Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area, Chengdu, Chongqing and Central Region steadily advanced. The Bureau said that the industry will continue to maintain a steady upward trend in 2024. The postal industry is expected to handle 171.5 billion pieces of parcels with a revenue of 1.6 trillion yuan in 2024, with a growth rate of about 6%. The express delivery enterprises will handle 142.5 billion pieces and earn 1.3 trillion yuan, with a growth rate of about 8%. The Himalayan Kingdom of Bhutan began voting today in general elections, with parties vowing to tackle serious economic challenges, calling into question its long-standing policy of prioritizing gross national happiness over growth. Both parties contesting the vote, the Bhutan Tendril Party or BTP and the People's Democratic Party or PDP, are committed to a constitutionally enshrined philosophy of a government that measures its success by the happiness and well-being of the people. Foremost in the minds of many are the struggles facing the kingdom's younger generation, with chronic youth unemployment and a brain drain. Bhutan's youth unemployment rate stands at 29%, according to the World Bank, while economic growth has sputtered along at an average of 1.7% over the past 5 years. Young citizens searching for better financial and educational opportunities abroad have left in record numbers since the last elections. Tourism, a small share of Bhutan's economy but a key earner of foreign currency, has yet to recover from the disruptions of the COVID pandemic. The previous government pursued several projects to diversify the economy, including a special economic zone on the Indian border and plans with a Singapore-based company to raise funds for a cryptocurrency mining scheme. Bhutan lies sandwiched between the globe's two most populous countries, China and India, with both neighbors watching with keen interest as they eye strategic contested border zones. Asian stocks advanced today after a tech-led rally on Wall Street as investors look to the next set of US inflation numbers due this week, which could provide further clarity on when the Federal Reserve might start cutting interest rates. MSCI's Broadest Index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan edged up 0.2% after US stocks ended the previous session with gains. Trading in Europe was also set for a positive turn, with the pan-region Euro Stoxx 50 futures up 0.29%, German DAX futures 0.27% higher, and FTSE futures up 0.34%. Australian shares were up 0.95%, while Japan's Nikkei stock index was trading 1.14% higher. In Australia, the S&P ASX 200 bounced higher after November retail sales posted the biggest monthly gain in 2 years and comfortably topped a Reuters poll estimate. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was up 0.26%, while China's blue chip CSI 300 index gained 0.21% after earlier trading in negative territory. The positive sentiment across the region's equities markets comes ahead of December's US Consumer Price Index, or CPI, reading due to be published on Thursday. China is due to publish December CPI figures on Friday, which analysts expect will show further deflation amid persistent weakness in the economy. China's stock market was among the worst performers globally in 2023, with the CSI 300 index closing the year with 11% losses against a 20% gain for global stocks.
Activist investors are expected to launch more and bolder campaigns for change among European companies in the year ahead, after a record number in 2023.
Europe was for years something of a backwater for activists, as the company's management often had closer ties with local unions, sometimes with governments, and often with big investors than in other parts of the world, giving them more protection. But growing investor activism could force more costly and time-consuming strategic standoffs, as traditional investors, such as Decca Investment, join corporate agitators like Elliott Investment Management in openly demanding major changes. Analysts, lawyers and bankers said activists are seeking new frontiers and finding some old alliances in Europe are fraying. A survey from law firm Skadden Arps released yesterday found that 60% of polled companies expect shareholder activism in Europe to increase over the coming 12 months. Lazard's data, meanwhile, showed long-only investors were involved in 14% of last year's campaigns, up from 12% between 2018 and 2022, while individuals, founders of companies and family offices accounted for 16%, compared with 11% between 2018 and 2022. The US remains the biggest market for activist investors, with 133 campaigns in 2023, compared with Europe in 69 and the Asia-Pacific region at 44.
Oil prices rose slightly today after sliding in the previous session, as markets weighed West Asian tensions against demand worries and rising OPEC supply.
Brent crude futures rose 18 cents, or 0.2%, to $76.30 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures inched up 0.1%, or 6 cents, to $70.83 a barrel. The benchmarks had fallen over 3% and 4% respectively on Monday, on sharp price cuts by top exporter Saudi Arabia and a rise in OPEC output. An analyst said Saudi Arabia's sharp price cuts and OPEC's increased production have offset supply concerns caused by escalating geopolitical tension in West Asia. On the Gaza war, the Israeli military has said its fight against Hamas will rage through 2024, worrying markets that the conflict could grow into a regional crisis that could disrupt West Asian oil supplies. Holding back price gains, however, a Reuters survey recently found that OPEC oil output rose in December, as increases in Angola, Iraq and Nigeria offset continuing cuts by Saudi Arabia and other members of the wider OPEC alliance. Higher supply had prompted Saudi Arabia to cut the February official selling price of its flagship Arab light crude to Asia to the lowest level in 27 months.
And that concludes this edition of Malaysia Tonight. In our top story, smart partnership to improve livelihoods of Felda settlers. As this is my first broadcast of the year, I would like to take this time to wish everybody a happy new year, and I hope that your 2024 has gotten off to a flying start. Till then, I'm Daryl Baptist. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thanks for watching.